Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint. Chapter 19. Episode 5, Shadow Keeper, 1. Then I will let everyone take care of it. Yahiheet. The Dakibi said these words and disappeared. A food penalty and survival penalty. I already knew about the former penalty. However, the latter wasn't in the original ways of survival. Maybe my contract with Bai Hyung caused this development. Young Hee-won confirmed that the biscuit in her pocket had disappeared and asked in a soft voice. Dr. SSI, did you perhaps know something like this would happen? I did expect it. I thought about what the Dakibis would do first to harass humans. Aren't you really good at making predictions? I called Lee Hyun-sung and the others over. The situation was created and now it was time to move. Give back our food. How did this happen? The people of the marginalized group were crying. Cheon In-ho and the mainstream group were also devastated by the sudden food shortage. My eyes met Cheon In-ho's, who bit his lip. Perhaps, were you aware of it? No, that is impossible. If I could read his thoughts, then that's what he would be thinking. You have accurately read the thoughts of character Cheon In-ho. Your understanding of the character Cheon In-ho has increased. My understanding rose from this sort of thing. I looked at other people's expressions and tried to guess what they were thinking. But the previous messages didn't pop up. Meanwhile, Cheon In-ho quickly gathered the people together in order to organize the chaos. Everyone, gather together. I will give you an emergency notice. The contents of the notice were simple. The situation had become worse, so more scouts from the marginalized group was needed. They had to hurry. Now there was no food underground. We won't distribute food to people who don't participate as scouts. Despite the hardline declaration, there was no backlash from the citizens. No, they couldn't. It was an inevitable result in this situation. The people noticed it and volunteered to be scouts one by one. Despite the disappearance of the food, hope remained on Cheon In-ho's face. As the situation became worse, more control was passed on to the mainstream group. Lee Hyun-sung became anxious when he saw this and opened his mouth. Dr. SSI, what now? Of course, we have to go and get food. The expressions of the party members became tense at these words. Obtain food. This meant only one thing. Then we have to be scouts? There is still food remaining above ground. Nope, we won't go above ground. If we go there, we will unconditionally die. I looked at a gas mask on the floor. This tattered gas mask couldn't stop the poisonous fog. But we need to obtain food above ground. Lee Hyun-sung SSI. The world has changed. Then the food needs to change. I looked at the tunnel to Yaksu Station. Wait a minute. Dr. SSI, don't tell me. That's right. In this world, humans were no longer the top predators. Even if we weren't predators, we didn't necessarily have to be prey. We will hunt monsters. After a while, several people from the marginalized group, including myself, were standing in front of the tunnel towards Yaksu Station. I see. You are going to enter the railway track. I thought Cheon In-ho would challenge us when we refused to join the scouting group, but he seemed relieved that I was out of the group. He might think I was a threat to his own power. Well, looking at it in the long run, a team dedicated to attacking the scenario is required. Come back safely. He was a funny guy. He spoke like he was the captain. But the time for him to be finished wasn't far off. Your understanding of the character Cheon In-ho has increased. Your understanding of the character Cheon In-ho has reached a certain level. I see, I got it now. There were two major cases of character understanding arising. One was when I got the liking or trust of the character. The second was when I accurately guessed what the character was thinking. Maybe now was the latter case. The character Cheon In-ho is suspicious of you. According to the accumulated understanding value, a vague idea of the person's emotions could be obtained. Oh, can one of my group members join? I'd like to get some information on the attack. Indeed, Cheon In-ho wouldn't let us go so easily. I stared at the man behind him. It was the person who would go with us and an unlucky fellow. I have to go with them. Why else are you here, Han Hyung? Didn't you want to reconcile with Dr. SSI last night? That. Cheon Inho's party member who joined us was department head Han Myung-go. Didokja SSI. If you don't mind, I will go. I understand. Let's go together. Han Myung-go was surprised when I responded readily. He thought I would refuse. Lee Hyun-sung had a worried face, but I had an idea. In any case, the survivors' party of 5 people from carriage 3807, consisting of me, Lee Hyun-sung, Lee Gil-young, Yu Senga and Han Myung-go was reformed. Can I come as well? Is it okay even if your body isn't fully healed? This much is fine. There was one more. Including Young Hee-won, there was a total of 6 people in the party. It was a lot for a small number. Grr. Of course, the number of people wasn't much in front of the upcoming crisis. A new sub-scenario has arrived. Plus. Second scenario, food acquisition. Category, sub. Difficulty, E. Clear conditions, directly hunt the monsters that can be used as food and cook them. Time limit, none. Compensation, 500 coins. Failure? Plus. As soon as they stepped foot in the tunnel, a sub-scenario flew in. Food acquisition. It was a sub-scenario we had to go through before entering the second main scenario. A few constellations are anticipating your performance. The darkness of the tunnel became apparent before we even moved 10 steps. I lit up the tunnel with a flashlight, but the outline of the surrounding area wasn't visible at all. It was proof of a curtain that was blocking the light. The real thing would be beyond this curtain. Dokja SSI, wait a minute. It is really dangerous from here on. Young Hee-won, who walked beside me, stopped first. Are we really going this way? No matter how I look, it seems like suicide. There is also Gil-young. In fact, I was concerned from the beginning. It isn't too late, so how about we leave Gil-young behind? And if possible, the women. Lee Hyun-sung SSI, I'm not as good as you, but I know how to fight. I took some kendo lessons. But an unnecessary controversy was about to heat up the atmosphere, so I interrupted. Lee Hyun-sung SSI. I told you before. The world has changed. It is biased that a woman is physically weak. Right now, everyone can become stronger by raising their stats. But Young Hee-won SSI, there is also a problem with your words. What is it? Just as a woman isn't weak, a child also isn't weak. Gil-young, show them. Lee Gil-young came forward. He looked around for a while before sitting on the tunnel floor and reaching out his hand. Young Hee-won's eyes widened. Oh my god, what is that? Shit. Cockroaches. Han Myung-go cried out with fear. The cockroach that appeared in the distance was connected to Lee Gil-young's fingertips with a faint solid line. The cockroach listened to Lee Gil-young's words like a well-behaved dog and disappeared into the darkness. My attribute is Insect Collector. Insect Collector. Lee Gil-young possessed the rare ability to communicate simply with insects through his diverse communication skill. This is nothing in front of us. It is safe for 100 steps forward. Lee Gil-young showed an overwhelming scouting power and the other people made a stunned expression. Lee Gil-young spoke to them with a bold expression. Thank you for your concern. But I didn't follow all of you for you to take care of me. Ah, yes. Young Hee-won nodded with a sour expression. Lee Gil-young came to my side and I stroked his hair. Lee Gil-young's attribute hadn't been seen in the original ways of survival. It wasn't a wrong choice to save Lee Gil-young in the beginning. We passed a clear barrier and entered the full-fledged darkness. You have entered a dangerous area. Why you Senga SSI? It is dangerous to hold my hand while walking. Aren't you more afraid than I am? And no. The air inside the curtain was sticky from the humidity. Reduce the light. Yu Senga immediate covered the flashlight. Since this model didn't have a light control function, she had to adjust the light with her hand. Ouch. Don't shine it downwards. Young Hee-won felt nauseous when she checked the ground. There were torn bodies. The bodies of those who tried to move through here were arranged at their feet. Yu Senga closed her eyes tightly, Han Myung-go shook and even the bold Lee Hyun-sung started sweating. Lee Gil-young was surprisingly calm, with not the slightest bit of fear on his face. I felt a bit worried. This guy, did he think it was all a game? There is something that isn't human. As Lee Gil-young said, it wasn't only the bodies of humans on the ground. There was something the size of a fully grown wolf. The bodies of the mole-like creatures were scattered all over the place. The ninth-grade underground species, the ground rat. It was a name reminiscent of bug on Earth, but a name was just a name. They were underground piranhas. The ground rats were persistent hunters who burrowed through the ground in groups and aimed at their prey. However, the ground rats collapsed like they had received a bombardment. Young Hee-won sighed. Who the hell did this? Obviously, there was only one human who could turn the ground rats into this. Yu Jong-hyuk. He proceeded to the next station through this path alone. But I couldn't help wondering. Originally, it was supposed to be tonight or tomorrow when the third turn Yu Jong-hyuk moved to the next station. Why was he so hasty? Did he become impatient? What was the reason? Dr. SSI, can we use this for food? The scenario said that we have to hunt it ourselves, so maybe it isn't possible. Well, it is kind of uncomfortable. What about cooking? Do you want to bake it on a fire? It could be baked. The problem was that it must be a special fire. Hee-won SSI, you said you were good at kendo? It is a bit much to say I am good, but what are you doing now? I stabbed the body of the ground rat and started to cut it with a knife. I didn't know when I read it in the novel, but it didn't go as well as I thought. After somehow getting rid of the tough skin, I managed to remove the spine bones. This was the first time, so I left many scratches, but it was usable. Why are you taking that? You need a weapon for kendo. The stone hog's thorn wasn't enough, but the spine of the ground rat consisted of a single bone, making it a pretty good weapon at the beginning of the scenario. After cutting the cartilage leading to the leg and shaping it, the bone actually took the shape of a knife. I gave it to Young Hee-won. Thank you. Suddenly I feel like I'm back to the Paleolithic age. You need to grind it a bit more for it to be useful. There are rocks around, so skillfully grind the blade. Hoo-hoo, understood. Captain. Young Hee-won started to grind the blade with a slightly excited voice. I looked up and saw Lee Hyun-sung watching the scene with a bit of envy. Do you want one? You will make me one. All of you come closer. It is better if you learn how to do it. Let's make it together. In fact, this was also my first time trying it. I wouldn't have been able to do it if the details hadn't been included in Ways of Survival. Why wasn't Ways of Survival popular? It was simple. The author wrote too much of the setting. Dr. SSI, you are a beginner, but you are good at it. We sat down and made weapons together. This time it was a spear, not a sword. They didn't have the kendo skill, so I decided it was more stable to make a long spear. Lee Hyun-sung's spear was made with the spine of the largest ground rat, while Yu Senga and Han Myung-go's weapons were made with the spine of average-sized ground rats. Finally, Lee Gil-young's weapon was made with the head bone of a young ground rat. You have succeeded in acquiring weapons by yourself. A very small number of constellations are interested in the primitive nature of humanity. The constellations have sponsored you 100 coins. Everyone received these messages. We receive coins even for this type of thing. I don't want you to die. You have your own coins. Yes, we do. Whenever possible, leave enough coins for the survival cost and invest the rest in your strength, stamina and agility. Otherwise, you won't survive. I'll keep that in mind. We finished the preparations and started to move forward again. The 100 steps that Lee Gil-young mentioned was right in front of us now. The sub-scenario, food acquisition, has begun. The ground rats crawled out from the ground. I quickly counted the numbers. 1, 2, 3, there were exactly 13. It was more than I thought. Grr. The group of land rats drew a line and started threatening us. The moment we crossed the line, the fight would begin. There is no plan. We are beginners. It might sound cruel, but honestly, I don't expect you to survive. That. Still, all of you survive. Please. Han Myung-go was the only upset one in the party. Everyone else was nervous but looked determined. In particular, Young Hee-won's eyes were very impressive. Okay, let's try it. Everybody, please live. Just as Yu Zhonghyuk tested me, I also had expectations for them. No matter how good a mentor, a person who wasn't determined couldn't survive in this world. In the end, it was up to a person to save themselves. Everyone should use this opportunity to realize it clearly. Then let's go. I also knew who I must take among these people. As we took one more step, the ground rats moved. The battle began.